Have you seen the new Netflix documentary, The Fit for TV, the reality of The Biggest Loser? Oh boy, I've been wanting to talk about this for months. Welcome back to the Badass Reset Club. I am your host, Heather Yancey, where we are breaking down where we need to hit the reset. And today we're talking about why weight isn't the full story of health. And sometimes we need to hit the reset there because we get way too caught up in a scale number, aesthetics, the way that we look, and there's much more to dive into. So recently I watched the Netflix documentary. As a matter of fact, I've watched it twice. And to be honest, it hit hard. It hit hard the first time I watched it, and it hit differently the second time I watched it. The Biggest Loser was sold as this incredible transformation story. People were losing massive amounts of weight. They were crying on the scale. They were celebrating the whole new you stuff. But what this new series reveals is a side that we didn't get to see. The extreme, sometimes unsafe methods, the emotional manipulation that happened, and the pressure to get smaller, faster, no matter what the cost was. There was one contestant that stood out to me, and she's kind of one of the main focal points for this documentary, Tracy Yukich, and I hope I'm not, botching your last name. Tracy describes like collapsing, and I don't mean just being weak or a quick little faint. Like, she went down during the very first challenge. She nearly died. And she nearly died because all of her organs were literally shutting down. What a scary thing to happen. And others talk on the show about being pushed into taking caffeine pills, into working through dehydration, through really unhealthy tactics just to move that number on the scale. And I think for a lot of us, we've been in that situation before a big event, before a wedding, before a reunion, before something where we're like, just make that weight get off as fast as possible. And really, there's so much more to this picture of what we should be focusing on. Yes, we want to look good and feel good in our clothes and in our skin, but we need to step back and we need to hit the freaking reset on weight loss. Okay, there's this part in the documentary that stuck with me, that so many of the contestants had regained all the weight later, and some of them even more. Like, their bodies and often their minds were left struggling loudly after the camera stopped rolling. These people, what they went through, it wasn't just a series that was filmed. This was their lives. These lives were impacted from the show forever. And some of them in a good way. I am not throwing shame to the show by any means. I was a faithful watcher every single season, except I kind of felt like they jumped the shark when they went to kids. I didn't watch the kids. I didn't love that aspect. I thought it was a little bit of exploiting children. I didn't love that part. But I faithfully watched every single episode of every season. And when I watched this series twice, the recap series, I had so many questions in the first one. I wanted to know, Jillian, where are you? I follow Jillian in real life. I am respectful for both sides, for Bob and Jillian. I have mass respect for all people in my industry because we all have different experiences. We all come at this from a different place. But I had so many questions watching it. Like, what happened to these people? Why were they not taken care of so that they ended up gaining weight back or even more weight? What happened to, once the camera stopped rolling, what happened to them? Where did they get support? Where was the help? And you hear snippets in the documentary that there just wasn't anything there. Perhaps that's resources. Perhaps they signed a contract to work for an X amount of time and then it was done. But when we look at the overall health, we need to be including mental health in this as well. To get on camera in front of people and to get on that stage and step on a scale in front of cameras, in front of many millions of people watching, cringe. I cringe. I think we get smarter with time. And of course, when we look back, hindsight's always smarter, but I would have run this show 1,000 ways differently. And this is not me sitting on a high horse. This is me like watching what happened and having a different lens, a different perspective. I'm couch coaching here. I would have done this in so many different ways. And I would have made sure that these people, Tracy, everybody else, felt the support going forward, because they literally put themselves on a stage for everybody to critique and then weren't left with anything. So we're going to break this down. And what I really want to use today is I want to talk about weight, and I want to talk about why weight alone isn't the marker of health, especially in midlife. And then I want to guide us through a little bit of the reset framework. So reset, that's resilience, energy, it's strength, it's empowerment, and it's transformation. And it's both physical and mental, because those 5 things give us a real story of health. So let's dive in. When we look at why weight doesn't equal health, let's start by challenging the belief that the number on the scale tells the truth. The number on the scale is often a very short-sighted story. 2 people can weigh the exact same, right? And yet one can be metabolically healthy while the other is at risk. And the difference is the body composition. So we break it down, muscle versus fat. We look at bone density, metabolic health markers like blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure. None of those show up on the bathroom scale. In fact, you could weigh the same today that you did 10 years ago, maybe even a few pounds more, and be far healthier because you've built more lean muscle and you've improved your metabolic resilience and you've completely shifted your body's future. So this documentary showed us what happens when weight is the only focus. People are pushed to unsafe extremes, and it's an illusion for health, right? But what real health is looks very different. I've done podcast episodes before on letting go of the scale, like screw the scale, don't focus on it. Now, I use a smart scale, and by smart scale, I mean it's still kind of dumb, but it's measuring different things. And all I use it for is to track things over time, to track trends. So I'm looking at my muscle mass. I'm looking at subcutaneous fat. I'm looking at the visceral fat. I'm tracking, not that it's 100% accurate. It's not, but I'm tracking that over time. And I've been using this scale for the last 6 years. So I have a good amount of data to really support my efforts in the gym, with my nutrition, with the reset stuff that I do. And of course, then I go and I get my body spec images, and that's helping give me a little bit more of a clearer path to muscle mass, to bone density. It's just a little bit more professional than my bathroom scale. But the bathroom scale is something that I do not get on just to see, oh, wait, I am looking at trends over time with the other things. Okay, so the second piece of this, the R in reset, is resilience. Think about Tracy's story from the documentary. When she collapsed on the beach after her run, they had to run 1 mile. This was on day 1. They got off the bus and had to run a mile, which if you've ever tried to run on a beach, it's impossible. You're dealing with terrain issues. You're dealing with not being steady. You don't have solid stability to push off from. It's really difficult to run on a beach. And Tracy's organs started shutting down. She had rhabdomyolysis. And this is the opposite of resilience. This is a body breaking down under pressure. Resilience means having a body that can adapt, that can recover, that can protect you in your daily life. We know that muscle is protective. It supports your blood sugar regulation. It keeps metabolism steady. It reduces the risk of falls and injury. And in midlife, resilience might look like carrying groceries without strain. It might look like hiking without knee pain. It might look like recovering from stress faster or being able to bend, twist, and play with your kids, with your grandkids, with small people around you, with your pets. Resilience isn't about shrinking either. It's about fortifying both physically and mentally. The second piece of that, the E, it's for energy. In the documentary, contestants admitted that they had been given caffeine pills or pushed to the point of pure exhaustion. And that is false energy. It's not sustainable. When real health shows up in energy, it's the energy that you have to live your life. So you think about, do you wake up ready for the day? Do you have stamina to do what you love? Whether that's hiking, traveling, or you're just making it through your workout without crashing. Muscle boosts metabolism and mitochondrial function, and that means better energy at a cellular level. So we add in quality sleep, balanced nutrition, stress management. Your energy becomes consistent. It's not manufactured in caffeine pills or in sugar highs. And here's the kicker. You'll never see energy reflected on a scale, but you'll feel it every single day. So we've got resilience, we've got energy. The next one is S in our reset method, in our framework. And S here stands for strength. This is where the weight versus health story really starts to break down. So many of the Biggest Loser contestants dropped huge amounts of weight, but often it was muscle mass right along with the fat. And that's why so many regained weight. Because when you lose muscle, you lose your body's engine for burning calories and protecting your bones. And for women in midlife, strength, it's a non-negotiable. We hear this all the time. We naturally lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass per decade if we don't actively train. And bone density declines too, which increases our risks of fractures. So strength training is the antidote. It reshapes your body, it protects your metabolism, and it makes everyday life easier. And yes, the number on the scale might actually go up when you gain muscle, but here's the secret. You look leaner, your clothes fit better, and you'll be far healthier. So that scale might rise, but so does your health. And moving on to the second E in our reset framework. The second E is for empowerment, because one thing that stood out in this documentary is how the producers openly admitted that they looked for emotionally vulnerable people that they could push, break down, people that they could get ratings from. And that's not empowerment, that's exploitation. The scale often does the same thing in our homes. It can control our mood. How often have you stood on the scale in the morning and thought like, oh, it's going to be a good day. Oh, crap. There goes my day, right? It dictates how we feel about ourselves even before we've had coffee. But what if you measured progress differently? What if you tracked how many push-ups you can do from now until 2 months from now? What if you looked at how much weight can you carry? What if you checked how strong and confident you feel when you walk into a room? That's empowerment. And that's you taking your power back from the scale and putting it into your own hands. And then lastly is the T in our reset framework, and that T is for transformation. Here's the problem with The Biggest Loser. It sold transformation as a dramatic before and after photo. It was a thinner body, smaller clothes, tears on the scale. But what we learned from that documentary is that so many contestants didn't stay there, that the weight came back, that the pain stayed, that the transformation didn't last. And that's because true transformation isn't about crash diets. It's not about punishing workouts. It's not about spending 9 hours in the gym. It's about a lifestyle reset. Midlife is the perfect time for this kind of transformation. It's about fueling with enough protein. It's about training with intention. It's about managing stress, about getting real sleep. It's about moving from a place of fear of weight gain, fear of aging, fear of change, into this place of strength, vitality, and freedom. And that is transformation, and it lasts. So here's what I want you to take away from this. That Netflix show, Fit for TV, showed us a real dark side of chasing weight loss is the ultimate goal. People lost weight, yes, they did, but they also lost health, muscle, energy, and sometimes their own sense of empowerment. So let's shift it. If you are on a journey of your own, if you are trying to make a body composition change, you're trying to make a major change, use the reset method here. Work on your resilience, your energy, your strength, the empowerment, and the transformation will come. Because we have to remember this, midlife isn't a decline. It is the best time to hit the reset. And if this resonated with you, please share it with a friend who's maybe tired of letting the scale tell their story. And as always, keep building your own resilience, keep hitting the reset, and keep showing up like the badass that you are. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the Badass Reset Club.